Hey everybody, and greetings from the right side of the room. It's Shoreless, and today I'm going to show you how I play LOTRO with a controller. First, it's important to mention that LOTRO was built in the long ago and modeled after a particularly popular online RPG that shall not be named. This means that it was made to be played with a keyboard and a mouse, or even just a mouse, and any gamepad setup is going to fall short in some respects. So why play with a controller at all? For me, it's just so much more comfortable to play with a controller. While I'm a lifelong PC gamer, I was a console player first, and so a controller just feels better. My desktop setup is also less than ideal, so ergonomically, being able to kick back with a controller is easier on the joints. You probably will not be able to successfully engage with high-level content and raids using this controller setup, but for everything else, it's quite nice. You'll need a modern gamepad of your own choosing. I have a GameSir brand controller, essentially a knockoff Xbox controller, and a free Windows app called Joy2Key, which is linked in the doobly-doo along with a copy of my own configuration file. Here you see my basic configuration. In setting it up, I had to stop and think about the most essential functions I always use in the game and make sure those were actualized here. The D-pad is for movement, and the right stick is for the camera control. You'll notice that this is configured to trigger Shift plus the directional keys, and this is for two reasons. Number one, I set up my input this way so that I can control the camera with just the keyboard when I want to, and also because there is not native input for using the camera with the joystick. There used to be X input support, but it seems to have been broken for some time. So if you go with this configuration, make sure you adjust your input in LOTRO accordingly. I'll show you how to do that in just a second. The main buttons correlate to numbers 1 through 4 on the quick slot bar. If you've ever played Final Fantasy XIV, you'll see some similarities here. My right trigger is the control button, so I can use slots 1 through 4 on the next quick slot bar. Left trigger on the controller is the shift key, opening up 4 more slots, and pressing them both together opens up my final quick slot bar. To make sure this particular function is enabled, go to LOTRO, open up your options by pressing Ctrl O, scroll down to quick slot bar number 2, and then make sure that it is bound to both Control and Shift at the same time. Button 8 on my controller, which is essentially where the start button would be, opens up my inventory. The bottom to the left of that is M for the map, and the one below that is my auto run button. I remap that to the up key by default, but normally the auto run is the numlock button. Speaking of which, one important setting to make sure you have enabled so you're not constantly fiddling with the camera is this camera reset option. So that's the basic config, but let's talk about some of the more elaborate stuff I had to do to get my controller working optimally. The left stick is my mouse. This is pretty easy to do with Joy2Key. Pressing the left stick is the same as a left click on the mouse. Pressing the right stick is the same as right click with the mouse. Even if it's a bit fiddly, it's important to have some kind of mouse access for peak functionality. I've heard of some folks using an old Steam controller which can utilize the mouse with its touchpad, and I think a PS5 controller has the same thing. No matter how much you customize your controller, there are still many things you just can't do in this game without a mouse. The other fiddly bit that took some experimentation was interacting with NPCs and objects. My current configuration uses the right bumper for NPCs and the left bumper for objects. This happens by tying both the select key and the use key to the controller button. For NPCs, this is the backspace, then backslash, and for objects, it's delete and then backslash. The default use object key is U, so make sure you head back into your options panel to double check your own key map. In the past, I've had a combination of buttons that let me select and then use an object or NPC, which open up the right bumper for tab targeting. This is totally efficient, and I can talk you through that configuration on another video if you like, but for now, the same function lets me activate NPCs as well as target and attack mobs. This works because I mostly play melee classes, so needing to be right up on a mob to target and attack is not really a problem. Also, if you have nothing selected and then attack a mob, or if they attack you, the game will automatically target the mob. Again, this is fine for chill solo play, but perhaps less than ideal for challenging content. So that's the basics. Anything the buttons can't get, the mouse stick can. There are lots of other tricks I've discovered, such as swapping between 2 different controller configurations or tabbing between different quick slot settings, so if you're interested, let me know in the comments. I'm always experimenting and tweaking, so if I come up with any other aha moments, I'll be sure to let you know. For now, enjoy that controller, and we'll see you next time when we go beneath your feet.